Peace and power, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Thunderground Thursday. Of course, as always, at this time, I am your host, Yuya. And, it's a good time. It's a good time for the show. And the reason I say it's a good time, I know you guys hear me say it a lot, there's a lot of good times coming up. But because we just passed through that gateway of the 11s, November 11th, right? And I know it's a good time because right before that and right after that, I received so many different phone calls and so many different emails from my students, just sharing different things that they were either going to or coming from, just in terms of their own growth and their own development. So I'm very happy to be able to be a part of that, as always, and to really see when it's happening on a collective level. So there's been a lot of great things happening in the world of ANU, and just in the world of this whole spiritual collective, called by so many different names. But I knew the November 11th. It's always interesting every year. It's such a powerful vibration, such a powerful number. And I know, this being Thunderground Thursday, typically I speak about things that are centered more towards self-development and self-help and personal growth and things like that. And we're going to do that still, but I think there's also an aspect of the spiritual work that has become more and more prevalent, that I said, it's probably a good time to speak on this. And I said, I'm going to do it in a live way. Normally I don't do Thunderground Thursdays live. I don't do really too many of my shows live, but I did promise that I would deliver some more, because last time we did a live Foundational Friday, which was pretty much a last minute thing. There were a lot of callers who came in, and I wasn't actually able to get to everyone. So I did promise that I would do some more. Of course, in this segment, I'm still going to do the part 2 for the book writing. I'm not done with that, but we're just going to take a pause, and then we'll pick back up on the book writing techniques. But just for anybody who wants to call in number is 347-945-7680, 347-945-7680. And like I was saying, so I was noticing just some trends. And as you all know, when there are trends that I pick up on in the work that I do, I will kind of document them a little bit, even if it's just a mental documentation, and then make a decision if maybe this is something I need to share with more people, because like I said, there is a collective consciousness, and usually more than one person is thinking the same thing, across the unified field. So one of the things that kind of came across my path a lot, coming up to this whole November 11th vibration, was the idea of wisdom. And when I speak about wisdom, I'm referring to the wisdom that one garners through their spiritual devotion, or you could almost say your cultural devotion would probably also fit into that as well. But in particular for me, obviously, with my experience and what I deal with for the bulk of the day is some level of spiritual interaction with different people. And I'm going to speak on something, and again, it's Thunderground Thursdays. So we're shaking things up a little bit on Thunderground Thursdays. And so some of you listening, you may take it personal, because you may say, oh, I did that, or I said that to him before. And you should take it personal. But at the same time, just understand that I'm speaking on it because there's more than one person who has brought this up. So it's not just, I don't want you to just look at it like there's an entire show being dedicated to you singularly. And I know for some of you listen, that may sound like kind of an inappropriate notion, but I have had people contact me and ask me that before. This show that you did, it spoke to me and spoke to my issue so directly. I felt like, were you actually talking to me? Was the show based on something I'm going through it? And the answer, I could tell you 99.9% of the time is going to be no. There may be times where I'll cite something that someone may have said, but usually even when I'm citing something, I'm citing something that's been said multiple times. And I may reference one or two incidents, but I usually try to speak towards patterns as opposed to just reacting to singular incidents or just singular activities in one individual's life. I don't think that's really fair to present that. And I have enough going on. There's enough craziness between the spiritual work and everything else that I really don't have to single people out. So, I just say that ahead of time. I don't want you to think that anyone is being singled out per se. But certainly, there's a trend that I've been noticing for a while and haven't really addressed it because I think on some levels, I needed to really watch it for a while and see what it is. I've hinted towards it before. I've referenced it before, but I've never really gone into it or opened up the forum to get feedback from you all, which of course I am doing in this moment, and us talking about it and building on it. But again, this idea of wisdom, and more importantly, what I'm really speaking about is the wisdom that we get from the work that we do. Probably some of you have heard me say before that when you're working with spiritual entities such as Orisha and your ancestors and whatever it is you're working with, I don't want to go through the whole long list because we're all pretty much doing something different at this point. But what's supposed to happen is not just they do things for you, not just you call on them when you need something or you give them praise just because it feels good to do so, or whatever it is that you're actually doing. What's supposed to happen actually is you're really here on this planet to learn how to master your mind. That's the subduing of the satanic energy. It's the human thought, the mind. So you can't skip past the development that's necessary in that area and just think you're going to become a spiritual giant, or, which is more appropriate based on this segment, or think that you can skip past the good sense that's garnered from your spiritual work and become one who has a beautiful life, or one who's able to attract and pull in all of this spiritual energy and spiritual mojo. It doesn't really work like that. In fact, it is almost the opposite, because again, one of the greatest responsibilities of the spiritual energies that work with you, their greatest responsibility is to give you wisdom. Okay, not to fulfill your material desires or fulfill your wants and to fill your holes and gaping gashes of deficit and lack that you feel within your energy body. Certainly those things they can do for you, but that is not their core design. Their core design is to exploit and flesh out different components of your mind. That's what they're really, really here for, actually. And that's why even when a lot of times you would see them depicted as certain things, you would always see the depiction focused on the area of the head. So maybe the body of a human, but then an animal head or some other type of energy or beast head, which is really speaking to the different aspects of the mind. So I know this is not new news for some of you. Some of you are new listeners. I understand that because we get a lot of new listeners in pretty frequently. And even for some of you older listeners, I have discovered over the years that sometimes because of the way I deliver information, sometimes I may say something that a person decides to take a journey with. So I may speak for an hour, or speak for a half an hour, but a person is still going down the road of maybe something I said 15, 20 minutes ago. So it's the beauty of the technology. People go back and listen. So I'm always hearing about how people will tell me, yeah, I listen and I re-listen and I re-listen, and I re-listen, and I keep soaking it up. And every time I listen, I get something else. I get something new, which is great. And that's just because I know you hear something and you say, you know what, I want to go down that road for a little while. I know he's talking about this. I know he's taking me there, but this is really calling to me right now. This is feeding me right now, going down this particular avenue, so I understand. That's cool, but so the issue is this. I've found repeatedly through my spiritual work that people are still removing or ignoring the character of the spiritualist in lieu of gaining spiritual answers that they think they want to hear for their life. This is a big mistake because, again, I speak to you guys a lot about regarding and approaching your spirituality like it's some sort of vending machine, and I want you to pay attention to something really important. For those of you who frequent vending machines, I can guarantee you something, and that's the majority of the things that are dispensed from said machine, you are completely uninformed and unaware of their nature. So, in fact, you are putting money in, you want something back out, but the truth is what you're ingesting, you don't even know what it is. You don't know what's in that candy bar that you're eating, or those jujubes or Mike and Ike's or whatever the candies are. I don't really know all the candies. Milk Duds. I'm trying to go to the ones I remember. Or even that bag of baked, what is that garbage brand? They put the baked potato chips, sun chips or something like that. You don't know what you're eating. You don't know what's in there. Certainly not even really made for human consumption. But if it is going to be eaten, the body has to go through such a process to figure out what the heck it is once you put it in. Now, believe it or not, the same holds true when we're speaking about spiritual readings. What comes through initially, it is the job of the reader or the spiritualist to decipher and decode, decrypt, and then deliver to you. That can't be done by just anyone. Just like in the same instance, you may read the side of that candy bar or that bag of whatever that you just bought out of the vending machine, and you may say, wow, these ingredients don't look good, and these are some big words and whatnot, but you probably don't know. Even though you know it's full of chemicals, you don't know what those chemicals are. You probably don't really know. I mean, you might know how some of them affect your body, but for the most part, especially some of the newer candy, you don't know what that stuff is. A scientist would, a chemist would, maybe not, So it goes the same when you're in an environment where you're gathering and you're garnering certain spiritual information. When that spiritual information is coming to you or being delivered to you, you have to understand that there is a stop-off first of intellectualism that occurs before you receive said information. And that intellectualism is developed and cultivated by the fact that the individual is actually doing the work that you've just commissioned them for. So what I'm saying is that from doing readings, from doing spiritual work, from doing rituals and things like that for people, what occurs is that an individual becomes more intelligent. They become wiser. They take on the thought and the mindset of what it is that they're actually working with. And you rob yourself of an opportunity to gain wisdom by ignoring the individual and looking down at the mat and asking, what are they saying? What are the shells saying? What are the bones saying? Because the truth is, the real truth of it, if you've been doing it for some time, you don't even need those things. Half the time, those things are for you. I will tell you that. When people come to get readings by me, a lot of times I pull out certain tools so you can see the tool. Because if I just spoke to you, you wouldn't believe me. Or you wouldn't believe that as soon as you walked through the door, I saw your situation. You wouldn't believe it. So I have to go through the performance so that you will believe now, okay, this is it. Now we're getting down to business. Now he's doing the work, So I'm saying that I'm putting it in different perspectives. One, I'm putting it for the perspective of the spiritualist. When you're approaching the spiritualist, you have to understand that you're approaching someone who has a high level of intellect and wisdom because of the work that they do. And those energies before and after the work that they're doing for you, whether it be a reading, again, ritual, head cleaning, they're giving you tools, elekes, setting up your shrine, whatever it is that they're doing, before they even start to do that physical work with you, those energies and those forces and those implements begin to speak to that individual and share things with them. So sometimes I'll be commissioned to do certain work, and days before, or maybe that dawning of, the visions and the different information that's going to come through already starts days before. And I mean, a candle hasn't been lit, a libation hasn't been poured, and a Reiki hasn't been sung, nothing. And it starts to come through. Those energies already start to communicate and share information with me. So I could actually go into that environment. And sometimes it's just for a basic reading, and maybe a little 30-minute reading. And the reading is pretty much done before I even start. All the information already came through. So I may be going at that point just for confirmation or to give some more detail or whatever. And what happens is that when that information gets channeled through me, because again, like I said before, I don't heal people, but I channel it. Okay, I channel healing, just like I channel instruction. I channel education. I channel wisdom. I don't have that much in me. There has been many or a few great minds in our legacy and great gurus in our legacy. And I won't reach that level. They have reached a level that I won't achieve, but I'm thankful to be in the brotherhood, but in the same instance, what I'm delivering to you, just like what I'm delivering now, it comes from a channel. I kind of covered that a bit when I was doing my whole book writing techniques. Okay, not that my books are completely channeled, but certainly I'm bringing things back to my remembrance by the techniques that I use, listening to certain music and things like that. And then I just start connecting thoughts and ideas and concepts by just having it just coming straight from my mouth. Just keep going. And then I start to formulate what the idea of the work is from there. But it begins with a channel. So I'm saying that to say, and I'm going to share a situation with you. Well, it's a situation that has happened a lot, so I'll share it in a general sense, so you'll understand even better what I'm speaking about from the perspective of the spiritualist. So like what has happened a lot of times in the readings that I do, and this is one of the I'll be honest with you, one of the reasons why sometimes I don't want to do readings. Sometimes I don't want to read. Like, I prefer to do spiritual counseling over readings most of the time, depending on who I'm working with. Because for a lot of you need counseling more than you need information coming from a place that you don't understand. Like, again, getting the candy bar. You don't know what's in that candy bar, but you're telling me you're hungry, let me get a candy bar. But you don't want to hear the wisdom that those are empty calories, and the chocolate and the sugar is just going to coat your stomach, and it's going to make you feel like you ate, but your body is, you're still going to be malnourished. You're still not going to get what you're supposed to get. Here, let's go get, you don't want to hear that, because your mind is fixated on the candy bar, because most likely you probably have a sugar addiction. So addictions play their role in this work as well. So when we're speaking about this in a practical sense, or a demonstrative sense, I'm going to explain what happens sometimes. Sometimes a person will come to me for a reading, and, you know, sweetheart, listen, I'm not talking about you directly, but I know this just happened a couple of days ago, I think, in a reading, and I know you listen to the show. You know who I'm talking to, and I think you're a very sweet woman. So it's not directed at you. I just want you to know. And I spoke to you about it during the reading. All right, but you're not the only one doing it. I got to say that because I just have a feeling that when this individual hears this, they're gonna feel a little exposed. But it's not just about you. This is an ongoing thing. So what happens is, a lot of times someone will come to me for a reading, they'll ask certain questions. And those of you who have been tuning in to Chief Speaks, that live segment, you've heard this happen before. What will happen is a person will tune in for a segment, and they'll ask a question, right? And the question will be something that in all of their right mind, they know they shouldn't even be asking. Okay. Now this is not just the shows. I get emails like this probably daily. And honestly, most of them just go into a different kind of bin. They get answered, but it's a different kind of bin. Okay. So sometimes, a lot of times it happens either in relationships, or where a person has to make some serious life decisions that will cause them to relinquish their current standing and what they're currently doing in life. Okay. And they'll kind of know what makes good sense, but they don't like the idea of what makes good sense for them. So what they choose to do is to get a reading to determine if they can circumvent the good sense. So they'll ask a question. You know, I'll give you an example. There's a lot of times it's with relationships. Oh, here's one. Here's one from a while ago. There was a young man I was working with. I want to say, you guys know I'm not good with time. I want to say it was either last year or earlier this year. I think it was last year. And he had lost, quote unquote, his family. And that his wife and took his I think he had two children and left him and moved in with her mother. Right. And, you know, he called me because obviously he was distraught, and, you know, he wanted to figure out what was going on, and he wanted to he wanted his wife back. He wanted his family back, according to him. So he initially called me because he wanted some ritual work to do that would bring her back. Okay, that's a common thing. We get into relationships, we break up, it hurts so bad, we feel like our body's shutting down. You know, we're obsessed, we can't stop thinking about the individual, we just want the pain to end. And of course, we can only remember at that point the good times. We don't remember the reason why the relationship is actually over. We just remember all of the sweetness of the relationship. So we're obsessed with having this person back in our life. So he reached out to me about it, and I said to him, okay, well, you know, I gave him some man advice first, you know, and the reason I had to do that was because he was just really in bad shape, and just really on a brotherhood level, you know, he just needed to talk and to get some advice from an older brother who could kind of give him a healthier perspective of what was actually going on. So one of the things that had happened with him was, I believe he had lost his job. And at the time that he was speaking to me, he was living with a friend of his. And a lot of you are probably saying, he's talking about me, because this is a common scenario, believe it or not. Not to take any of the emphasis away from your own personal situation, but because we live in a society that kind of creates cookie cutter insanity, then a lot of people will be suffering from the same type and character of insanity. It's purposeful. Okay, these are the side effects and the products of the American social paradigm and programming. So he was living with a friend. He basically had no money. He had a job, but he wasn't making much money. I think they had cut his hours or something like that. So we were talking about the situation, and I said, well, why did she leave? And he was like, I'm not really sure why she left, and this and that and that and that. He said, but he feels like her mother, who was actually her aunt, but I guess she raised her, was always kind of putting different ideas in her ear, just kind of creating some streams of strife within the family format. And her auntie, who she called mother, did not have any children of her own. I think she couldn't have children. So she raised her. And then, of course, when they had their sons, she always had some level of connection with the sons, and maybe even some degree of coveting those children for herself. So, of course, she would always encourage the woman to move out, to leave them, and to move in with her. The schools are better there. This is better. That's better. And da 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 da. So the woman left. Eventually, she moved in with her. I think they were together for like 6 or 7 years, or 9 years, something like that. It was a pretty substantial number, though. And she left to move in with this auntie. And she left because the auntie said that she would put her back through school. She would send her back to school, and while she was going to school, she would watch the children for her, and she would also eventually get her an apartment as well as a car. Okay, so eventually what ended up happening, because they still had a pretty healthy relationship, they were still friendly enough, and he also revealed that there was some suspicion in terms of his wife felt that he at one point was unfaithful to her in the very beginning of their relationship with his ex. And whatever it is, neither here nor there. So that was something that was like overhanging for all those years, according to him. But there were no other incidents outside of that, but it was just that suspicion. So eventually his ex or his wife called him, and meanwhile he's calling me constantly. I need some spells. He wanted me to do something to the mother, and I mean something pretty serious. And I would just kind of put it off and say, well, you know what, why don't you think about what you're asking? And I would give him different perspectives. And, right now you're real emotional. So you need to, whatever you do, even if you're trying to do any healing work for yourself, you have to be a little bit more balanced, because right now you're all over the place. And he didn't reveal. One day she called him and said that she was going to leave the mother's place. She was trying to get a place because the promises that her auntie or her mother made, she didn't deliver on. So, she didn't get her the car. She in school. It was like a whole kind of, she said she basically was conned down there. So he called me about it and said, you see how that goes, and karma and things like that. And her auntie lied to her. I told you she's into some type of witchcraft and this and that. And she just kind of has a spell on her head. And I want to do a reading and find out what's going on. So, also I might add that when they met, their first child that they have together, there were 3 children. The first child that they had together, she was pregnant when they met with someone else's child. Okay, and he's still engaged in a relationship with her. Okay, so he raised those children, only knew him as a father, but technically only 2 of them, according to him, was his biological children. So what I had to explain to him was that this woman that he's coveting and wants back in his life so much and is so desperately in need of is really just has the mindset of a whore. And in that sense, she's just going to the highest bidder. So the mother, he loses his money, you know, because the way, even with the first child that she was pregnant by, you know, he ended up, something happened to that father. He didn't have any money. This guy had more money, so she went with him. He loses his job. She goes with the mother. The mother doesn't deliver and get the car and the school. So she said, I'm moving out. So I said, if you notice there, you just have someone who keeps going to the highest bidder. And there's really no love involved there. There's no concern clearly for those children. There's no concern for you. There's only a concern for her really maintaining this sense of survival that she feels she has to invest her all into, despite who or what she walks over. So I said, we really don't need to do a reading on this, and I'm certainly not going to do any spiritual work to bring her back into your life, because that would be against her will. And you really just inviting trouble back into your environment because you haven't developed enough or listened to the things that I've been telling you to see basically she did you a favor by leaving. And he couldn't hear, and he kept saying, well, can you just do a reading on it? Can you just do a reading? Can you just, I mean, you got to give me something. Give me some candle. I went, and then he went to a Botanica. He's like, I went to a Botanica. I told them about it, and they gave me some candle. They told me to go to the river and give some honey, and this, gave him some Oshun work to do. And I said, yeah, but do they realize that you're trying to attract someone back into your world that is toxic? Was that even brought up, or they're just giving you rituals to go do? So you're seeing them as a vending machine. You're seeing me as a vending machine. And what I'm putting out back to you, you refuse to understand because you've lost your rationality. You've lost your rationality because you're addicted to something that you don't want to release from your clasp. Okay. And what's supposed to happen is that when you're interacting with these spiritual entities and these beings, you're supposed to learn and see things. So I didn't have to cast to tell him, you got a prostitute on your hands. Okay, I don't even have to cast to tell you that. Now, you may not feel comfortable with the language. You may not feel comfortable with how I presented it to you, but let's look at what's really going on here. And then when I broke some things down, he was like, yeah, you're right. And then I even said, like, and I bet she did this. I bet you she told you this, that. He was like, yeah, it's like you were there. So then he's thinking again, are you reading right now? No, I'm just using good sense. And based on the intelligence and the wisdom that I've been able to acquire from doing this work, and also the patterns that I see every single day, I already know what this is. And you don't just hire an elder or a spiritualist or a priest, an awo, whatever you want to call them, because of their ability to manipulate objects on a mat or cards on a table. You tap into their energy because of the wisdom that they have. Because the truth is, they don't need the cards. They don't need the shells. They don't need the bones or anything else. It's the wisdom that they've acquired from years and years and years and years and years of touching, utilizing, and manipulating those oracles. And it is that wisdom that you want to tap into. So now that's on the side of the spiritualists, right? But then there's another aspect to this. The other aspect is the side of the client, right? And on the side of the client, you have this going on. For the side of the client, you have this interaction that they've had consistently with spiritual nature and spiritual tools, and the wisdom that you've imparted to them from all of the different readings they got and whatnot. And what happens is that really what people want, and you guys have to get out of this, is yes and no readings. Should I go do this? Yes or no? And for most of you who've gotten readings by me, that's the last thing I'm going to tell you is a yes or a no, because it's your decision. But I will tell you what yes looks like, and I'll tell you what no looks like. And then you can take it from there. Okay. I would never try to disregard or take away or extract your own wisdom from you. It's not a nice thing to do to a person. And sometimes that becomes a problem when we become really addicted to readings and things like that. We give up our own ability and the potential of intuition. We give it up, and sometimes we want a yes or no, but things are much bigger and broader than a yes or no. Like with his situation, can you get my wife back? Yeah, I could get her back for you, but why would I do that to you? Like, you need to go to someone who doesn't care anything about you or care anything about people. I didn't really even know him at the time, but you need to go to someone like that. I could do anything. That's why I do what I do, because one of the things I do enjoy is the potential and the ability to manipulate, not people, but situations. I can make anything happen. I've been able to manifest pretty much anything I've wanted. But even though I'm able to manifest the things that I want in life, I make sure that there's a moral compass that I subscribe to and I study. That moral compass we call Ifa. And using that moral compass, it helps me to determine the things that I want to do from the things that I don't want to do, and the things that are important from the things that are not important. One of the things that people ask me all the time is, wow, your readings are so accurate and this and that, and the spiritual work you do was like right on point. As soon as you did that work for me, as soon as we even started talking about the work, my situation got better. You working with a lot of power over there. Why don't you just hit the lotto? Why don't you do readings and things that hit the lotto, hit the number? Because I don't really care to do that. I don't care to disrespect my oracles by doing things like that. Because that's how I would perceive it. For me personally, for someone else, they may not feel the same way. It's okay. But for me, my character and my wisdom has told me that that's not what I do this for. Now, interesting enough, I did it for someone else before. I got them numbers and they actually hit. It was actually two people. It was a man and a woman. They were playing the same number together. And they played it, I think, for like a month and a half, 2 months. And they kept playing. I said, just keep playing the same number. You're going to hit. And they hit the number. And they kept saying, why didn't you play? You should have played with us. And this, no, because I don't play. This is not a joke for me. It's not a game. This is serious business here. So I don't play with it. I don't play with spirituality. I don't play with the initiations that I've received. I don't play with the wisdom that I've received. I take it very seriously. In the same instance, even if you don't have those initiations and you haven't been through all those processes like maybe I have, if you're getting readings and you're working with someone, you're working with an elder, you should take whatever they say to you very seriously with the same level of sobriety. You shouldn't skip over things. It's not really a healthy thing for you, because the wisdom that they'll give you, even in terms of guiding you towards what you should be asking for, that wise counsel will save you from a lot of different situations, and it will increase your ability and your capacity to master your thoughts, which is what you're supposed to be doing here. Not just looking for yes and no answers, but really looking for the wisdom in your question. So it comes up pretty often, with the relationship thing, and someone will ask a question, well, what about this? And what about this person? And what about that person? And I may say, well, no, there's nothing there for you, or that's not a good situation for you. But you already know that based on A, B, C, and D. And of course, people will, a lot of times will just kind of like, they'll go into this like, yeah, I knew, but I was hoping something. So now you thinking this is like, Wheel of Fortune or something. So like with the Wheel of Fortune situation, I'm just going to, you're going to cast a will, and then let's just see what comes out. Let's just see what happens. And that's certainly not what this is. When you're dealing with these tools, you got to come in with some respect of your own mind. And respect of your own mind is respecting the situations and the experiences that you've put your own mind through. And when you respect that, you respect with the products, because even the wisdom that I share, whether it be in a reading or whether it be on this show, that didn't come easy. That just didn't drop into my hands. And it may have come from me seeing someone do the wrong thing 40 times or me doing the wrong thing 100 times. So when it's shared with an individual, it should be taken as such. In the same way, when the elder is speaking to you, that wisdom should be taken with the same level of seriousness and sobriety. Okay, so, I just thought it was a very interesting thing to point out, and really just dealing with this idea of wisdom, and what wisdom should really bring us to, what it should represent for us, what it should provide for us, and how sometimes we tend to skip over what that is and what that should be in lieu of what we want. Oh, I want to be with this person. I want to be in this relationship. But, you sitting there doing the math, or I'm doing the math with you, doing the reading, and we're adding up everything and showing how this relationship makes absolutely no sense to pursue or to follow through with. But yet and still, but I want it, but I love this person so much. That's not love. You're not, love is not just thing that you fall into. I fell in love. No, come on. You choose that. Love is a choice. And then after the choice, love is a responsibility, because as we all know, you have to love yourself first, and you have to love yourself enough to synchronize your thoughts with your heart. There's nothing wrong with rationality. A lot of times we look at rationale like it's something evil once we become spiritual. Oh, you can't make sense of some of these things. Yeah, well, a lot of these things you can, though. And certain things, especially when it comes to human relations will always come down to numbers and math. Whether we like it or not, but it will always come down to you being able to put things on a scale and you being able to quantify your experiences and your situations and make some clear determinations as to where you should be and why you should be there, and if it makes sense. So, that wisdom piece is key. Now, I noticed, just so you know, Blog Talk Radio has put me in this new beta group for some testing. They're upgrading their quality, so we're gonna see how that turns out, because it's about time, because it usually sounds pretty bad. And I noticed that my dashboard is not showing me logged in. So for those of you who may have called in and have your hand raised and I didn't get to you, I do apologize. But I actually, because I'm in this beta group and everything's different, something might have went haywire. So please just be patient with that. But like I said, the responsibility of wisdom, give it some thought. Next time you get in a reading, or some spiritual work, don't ignore what the person is saying to you in order to skip over to what the shells or the tools are saying to you, because you think, well, that's the spirits talking straight to me. It doesn't work like that. That energy is talking to that individual who is then deciphering it and handing it to you. But the truth is that process already started. And without them even having to do the reading, there's a lot of wisdom inside of that individual, because they touch those oracles every single day. They're in their shrine every single day. They're in meditation daily. They're doing things that you don't even have the heart or the patience to do. You just don't feel like it, because your life is filled with a whole bunch of other stuff. And that's the sacrifice they've made. In the same way, when you go to a mechanic, you may say, hey, I'm having this problem with my vehicle. And you'll go to pop the hood. Hey, let me show you. And they say, you don't even have to show me. I already know what that is. This car, this year, I know exactly what it is. Oh, it's doing this. And they'll say, yeah, all of the ones this year, we get 5 of those coming in a week. All the ones from this year and this particular model had the same exact problem. I already know what it is. And they'll break it down to you without even having to get on their back underneath your vehicle. And you might still turn around and say, yeah, but I want you to get underneath the vehicle. You see the insanity in that? They specialize in that. They know what they're talking about. They have wisdom from that work, from touching it and doing it every single day. So, and you don't. The bottom line is you don't. If you do, you wouldn't have to go to them. You don't. Even when you look under the hood or look under the car, you don't know what you're looking at. You don't know how to do it. If you knew how to do the job and knew what you were looking at, you wouldn't go to there. Or if you do know how to do the job, maybe you don't have time for it. When they say, and I've had that experience of going to mechanics, say, hey, man, this is what's going on. Maybe I didn't have time to work on it, I had something going on. And they look at it, oh, yeah, I know what that is. That's such. I don't argue, because I work on cars myself. I know what it's like. Sometimes people bring their cars to me, or I hear certain things, and I say, oh, yeah, that's, You're so-and-so. I know what that, I don't even have to look at it. I know what it is. Because these cars had that issue, or I can smell from your exhaust, this is what's going on. Or I can see it, this is what's going on. Or when you're idling, this is what's happening. Little things like that you may be able to pick up on because you have a wisdom in that particular concentration that other people may not have. So the same goes for our spiritual work. We got to respect the wisdom that we come to the table with that other folks may not have. And those of you who get consistent readings and work done, you also are dealing with a level of wisdom that the average individual may not have, because you're sitting up underneath some very powerful intelligence. And I'm not just talking about the divine, I'm talking about the whole environment. And you have to start conforming your mind to that intelligence and not skipping over it because it doesn't feel good to conform yourself to that level of intellect. Because that's what it really boils down to 90% of the time. You don't see an end in sight. You have one way that to find a solution. And when someone is presenting something else to you, it's hard for you to fathom that maybe there's more factors at play here than what you think there is. So sometimes people will come to me, ask me about relations, and they'll find by the time we're done, I didn't even address the question. I'm talking about them. Okay, well, before we start talking about relationships, what's going on with you? See, and that's a part of the product of being in America too, is that gross lack of accountability. You ask a lot of people, and you'll hear it on the show, just listening to Chief Speaks. People will call in and talk about their relationship. This happened, and they did this, and they did that. And then I'll say, okay, what did you do? And that's when they'll get quiet. They don't know what to say next. Well, I didn't do anything. Come on. Does good sense tell you that somebody can just go through the world and have a bunch of things happen to them and they're completely innocent every time? They're just a victim every single time? There's no sense of accountability. There's no sense of, and then when people are accountable, they say, well, the mistake I made was choosing to be with that person. So you're just perfect, basically. And the only mistake you made is by not picking somebody else who was just as perfect as you are. You see? So then you start to get a hint. Now, as a reader, I'm telling you, when we're listening to things like that, we start to get a hint already of what's going on. People are starting to display that level of narcissism. And like, oh, okay. So everything else was your ex's fault, or this person's fault, or your sister's fault, or your mother's fault. And you've just been a victim for 30, 40, 50 years. You've been a victim. Haven't done anything wrong. And the only mistakes you've made is by putting yourself around these people. And none of the things that are going on in your life are a result of the bad karma that you've created. Maybe because sometimes, and this is what a reader will really tell a person. I will, though. You guys know how direct I am. Maybe it's because you're just a rotten person and you've done a lot of wicked things. And now like they say, the chickens are coming home to roost. So now you're having to deal with the karma of your wicked actions. I've told people that in readings, you've done some wicked things and you're trying to skip over that by lighting some candles and doing some baths and burning some incense. And you're not really addressing that you've done some things that have now affected your life for good. And you have to be accountable and deal with that. But you may halfway convince yourself that you're completely innocent. But those of us who have eyes to see and ears to hear, we see right through you. Some of you are wicked and you've done wicked things, and you're now being given the opportunity to turn that around. And you'll never be able to turn it around if you don't use the wisdom that's being handed to you. Some people sit around the culture and read the books and watch the DVDs and do all these different things, and they're filling their temple with so much information and never apply the wisdom from the information. They're just satisfied enough to say, well, yeah, I read that book, I watched that movie, I know about that. But the wisdom is not transforming you. See, that's what love is. Love is a transformative energy. When you truly love someone, something, or a force, or you're in the energy of love, you cannot help but transform. There was a song years ago that came out with Kashif and Melissa Morgan by the name of Love Changes. So true. Love transforms you. Okay? And forgiveness brings you salvation. And The understanding even of forgiveness when you're forgiving yourself is this. Because we say forgive, right? What are you forgiving? You got to look at the words here. You know, I always kind of give you the words. And we say, well, I'm forgiving because somebody did something bad to me, so I'm forgiving them. But look at the word, forgive. What am I giving? And for means before. So I'm giving something before another action happens. And you can't define a word with the word. So you can't say, well, I'm giving them my forgiveness. No. To forgive means to give love ahead of time. So before someone even asks for it, before someone even maybe warrants or deserves it, you forgive them, meaning I forgive love. You see? That delivers and transforms you. So when you're going through these experiences with these readers or whatever, the first thing you have to, like people say, well, first I forgave myself. Yeah, that's the easy one to do. You know, that's easy. Did you ask for forgiveness of anyone else around you? Did you ask for their love? You know, it's easy to say. People say that a lot of times. They'll do something really messed up. And you say, okay, what should you do to fix this? Well, first I had to forgive myself. Well, yeah, you know, that's not hard. But did you truly love yourself first? And if you truly loved yourself first, then it would be very easy to be accountable for the things that you've done, because you can see the love that you should have for yourself outside of your offenses. It doesn't make you unlovable. It may make you unlikable, you know, but it certainly shouldn't make you unlovable. There's going to be things that you've done that you're not going to like or you're going to feel bad about. But it's the shame and the guilt that takes you into a place of narcissism. That's from your shame and your guilt that you have about that situation. So yeah, I just wanted to speak on that, give you all something to think about. And I think I did do something funny with this new dashboard they gave me. You know, lucky me. I'm a tester of the new Blog Talk Radio Pro. But I could tell something happened with the phone call. So again, I apologize to all of you who have your hands up right now, but I actually cannot see you with your hands up. Make sure November 16th, you make it over to Nicholas Bookstore for the Shrine and Altar Workshop with our sister Felicia. Some of you have already started purchasing the Shrine and Altar book, and there'll be a DVD coming with that soon. But thank you. Thank you for the support. Like I said, it was just, you know, a little addendum book to help you out with your Shrine and Altars, but people have really been receiving it in a really strong way. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting that. It was just something I put together. I said, you know what, we need a supplement because I get a lot of questions about shrines and altars. And I need to give some people just some guides where they can kind of do their own thing, but have a skeleton that they can work with. And that's what that book is. It's not filled with a whole bunch of prayers and things like that. I mean, if you need that, you go to Grasping the Root of Divine Power for that. But it's filled with a lot of information that should change the way you perceive a shrine or an altar, and the way you perceive establishing one, and the way you even perceive yourself as an altar. You'll understand what that means if you read the book. But yeah, so I just wanted to thank everyone, you know, for picking that up, and for the support that you've shown. And certainly, you know, like I always say it, I appreciate the positive emails and things like that. But leave a review. You know, if you like it, you can copy and paste the same email that you sent to me and paste it into an Amazon review. You know, and that's for all of the works that you've enjoyed from me. Put the review out there. Like I always say, intelligent reviews. You know, those of you who've listened to shows before, you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes people don't read things all the way through. They just start talking. Like, read what you're talking about first, you know? You know, like I've gotten some reviews on like one of the books, like, oh yeah, there's some spelling errors in Grasping of Divine Power. And I'm like, okay, you sure? You know, I mean, I'm saying I'm the best speller, but you sure it's spelling errors? Well, yeah, because the way you spell African, I explained that right in the beginning of the book. Oh, and what is this understand? Don't you mean understand? That's also, those words are in the glossary. You know, I don't know what I'm saying when I'm saying it. There was an individual who helped me out a lot though, and I think I replied to email, but if I haven't, and I might have to put that correction in the next form of the book, but he had corrected me on the Zulu, some of the Zulu that I used in the book. He speaks Zulu, so I thank you for that. Thank you very much for that. I do appreciate that. And it was just a tense of a word that I used wrong, but that's significant. You might say, I'm going to army, or I'm going to the army, and that the makes it significant. So, sometimes not knowing the language fluently, we make those little mistakes, but thank you very much for pointing that out to me. I do appreciate that. But, make sure you check out the Shrine and Altar workshop. Show up, Nicholas Bookstore. I don't remember the time. I think it's 4 to 6, I think, something like that. And I'm sure you all will enjoy it. All right. But in any event, that has been our segment for Thunderground Thursday. And thank you all for listening, and think about what we spoke about. Please do. And be sure to tune in tomorrow, Foundational Friday. And I think I'm going to do tomorrow's show live as well. So get prepared and ready for that. So you got advance notice. And I may have to turn off this Blog Talk Pro thing because I think they might have messed me up. But in any event, I will speak to you all tomorrow for Foundational Friday. Until such time, peace if you're ready to go to war for it.